2 down. Here's a 2-2. Swing and a miss. He struck him out. Kimbrel closes it out, and the National League wins it. Elias Diaz with the home run to give the NL the lead, and the National League coming into Seattle and winning the All-Star game for the first time since 2012.
John Shambi with the play-by-play call there on ESPN Radio. You heard him say National League win the All-Star game 3-2. The NL snaps a 9-game All-Star game losing streak. Craig Kimbrel got the save, and if you're not watching on Twitch, you might not get a chance to see BK do his Craig Kimbrel impersonation right now in the studio.
I've been doing this bit for years, and it's one of my least favorite bits that I ever started for myself. Every time Craig Kimbrel pitches, I've got to replicate his motion every time he's getting set.
So while you're watching the game last night, the 9th inning, you were doing this?
That is the main reason why I'm in favor of the pitch clock, because he doesn't get to hold that ridiculous chicken wing style pose for nearly as long because he's got to rush to get to the plate like everybody else does. So it makes it a little bit easier. But like going back to college, dude, I could be in bars with a bunch of people. Whenever Kimbrel was pitching on the TV there, I'd have to do the bit.
And would women be like, who's this nut job with his arm over there?
They wouldn't say that. They would just leave, and that would basically insinuate that they were saying that. It's usually how it went down.
So MLB, the MLB app and MLB TV, if you go to like the game day, so you're watching the game on game day, there's a 2D version. There's also a 3D version that basically gives you real-time 3D images of the field. It even does Kimbrel's. It even gets Kimbrel's little arm thing on the app as well.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
It's an all-time bit by him. Yeah. He's the only guy who's ever done something as weird as that. And it's painful if you try to replicate it at home.
It is quite the bit.
Yeah, it is quite the bit.
So during the All-Star game last night, when Shohei Ohtani was up to bat for the first time, listen to what the fans in Seattle were chanting. Come to Seattle was the chant there that you heard from the crowd. And Ohtani was asked about Mariners fans in Seattle and said he loves the city. And I wonder if Seattle could be a dark horse team that could be in the mix for Shohei Ohtani. They have spent big on free agents in the past. They don't do it often, but they were famously the team that gave Robinson Cano $300 million over 10 years back in 2013. Like every once in a while, the Mariners can splurge, and it would make sense to do it on a guy like Ohtani, who's instant business. You get the Japanese market. They obviously have had tremendous success with that market because they were the team that had Ichiro Suzuki for all those years. So I wonder if Seattle could be a legitimate threat to add Ohtani, whether it's you trade for him at the deadline, which would affect the Astros immediately, or maybe they're a team that's in the mix in the offseason that could sign him, because we know reportedly Ohtani prefers playing on the West Coast. So everyone's assumed it's the Dodgers. Well, the Giants could get in the mix. They've been rumored. And how about Seattle as a team that also could be in on the Ohtani sweepstakes?
I would love for them to trade for Shohei Ohtani because they started the year as the 24th minor league system in all of baseball. And my guess is they'd be the 30th minor league system in all of baseball after the Angels got done with them. And I also believe there's no chance he would sign there in free agency. None. And I just don't believe there's a financial commitment from the Mariners great enough to get there. Yes, they've signed some free agents before. Yes, they've extended some guys with nice contracts that they've traded for, but it's a whole nother level of financial commitment for Ohtani, and I would welcome them keeping Ohtani from being in a relevant spot of the Astros playoff race, okay, so because they're not competing with the Mariners necessarily for a playoff spot.
You don't think they would if they got Ohtani?
No.
I mean, they just took 3 out of 4 from the Astros, though.
Yeah, but I just don't believe that the Astros and the Mariners are shooting for the same playoff spot.
Okay.
Like the Astros could find themselves with the American League West. The Mariners not winning the American League West, even if they got Shohei Ohtani. And then he'd leave in free agency, and they'd be gutted, and they'd go back to being an underperforming team. So I welcome them trading for Shohei Ohtani.
Okay. I'd prefer them not to trade for Shohei Ohtani. I'd prefer Shohei to stay with Anaheim for the rest of the year because I'm not worried about them at all. I would be worried about Seattle a little bit this year if they got Shohei Ohtani. They're only 4 games back of the Astros right now. Like, that's not insurmountable by any stretch. I'd still think the Astros were the better team, but I would think that would close the gap between the two teams without any question.
And Seattle has yet to play their best baseball yet. Like, there were high expectations for this team. Tim Kurkjian, I think, had them going to the World Series, to give you an example. Like, they were thought of as a team that was on the rise last year. Yes, the Astros swept them. That was a close series. Each game was really competitive, and it felt like, all right, this team is on the rise to be a legit contender. They've yet to really play their best baseball. Maybe they started to towards the end of the first half, and they won a series against the Astros. So I'm with you, BK. I'm not ruling out Seattle going on a run, and I still think the Astros win the AL West, but the Rangers are still a team that's going to have something to say about that. So it's not a guarantee that the Astros aren't competing for a wild card spot with the Mariners.
It would be hilarious if, Seattle gave up its entire farm to go get Shohei. They didn't win anything this year, and then Shohei left in free agency. Because I wouldn't peg Seattle as one of the 2 or 3 favorites to land Shohei if he hits the open market this offseason, right? I'd put the Mets, I'd put the Dodgers, I'd put the Yankees, and hell, maybe there's another team or two that I would throw ahead of Seattle in terms of where I think he would sign in the open market. So that would be pretty hilarious if they went all in on this year and didn't find a way to get it done. But I would prefer Shohei to not end up in the division, and if he does get traded, I would prefer him to end up in the National League instead of the American League.
If there's a team in the division I'd be worried about a short-term Ohtani situation, it's the Rangers. They've got the minor league assets to move if they want to go get Ohtani for the rental. I don't believe they're a long-term option for Ohtani, but for half a season, I mean, they need some starting pitching help that you can rely on. Well, that's Ohtani. And, oh, by the way, if you added Ohtani to that offense, my God, they'd mash everybody. I mean, that's one of the top 10 minor league systems in all of baseball. Yeah, they've had a couple of guys actually come up and start playing for them, but, I mean, they've got some big-time pitching prospects in the minors, and they could justify it because they got a little bit of a bonus here in this most recent draft by getting a guy they weren't supposed to get who's going to help them real soon in the next couple of years. So I'm more worried about the Rangers as a short-term Ohtani destination because there's far more teams that would rent him than be able to sign him.
Yeah, no doubt.
So there's far more teams that are rental threats than there are signing threats. And I am worried that the Rangers would at least have the conversation in the building and maybe even go as far as to have the conversation with the Angels about getting Ohtani because they had Ohtani. My God, I don't know a pitching staff in the world that could beat them in a 3, 5, 7-game series.
I'm actually not convinced the market for Ohtani at the deadline is going to be as insane as maybe some of us expected to, because I just don't think a lot of teams are going to deplete their farm system when you have no idea if the guy's going to re-sign with you. Like, if you're going to do it, you got to be really confident that you could bring him back on a long-term deal if you're making that deal. Like, you really trading probably 3 of your top 5 prospects for a rental? I just don't know if there's that many teams that would do it, as great as he is. Especially with the way baseball is kind of set up this year. Like, it's kind of wide open in the American League. I don't know if teams are like, let's dump all our prospects for Ohtani, and like we don't really have a guarantee that we're the top team. Like, what team adds Ohtani and you're definitely sure they're going to win it all? Like, I don't know. I don't think
the Braves.
I said American League though. Right?
Yeah,
I'm talking about the American League. But yeah, sure. But I don't think the Braves would make that move.
If the Rays added Ohtani, they're winning it all.
Yeah,
they would never do that. That's not what they do at all.
No, because I just don't think teams are going to dump their whole farm system for a rental.
Yeah, I wonder if they'll have to. Like, look,
what's the cost for Ohtani? Like, what do the Angels actually want? Because if let's play this out. They're out of it. They want to trade him. Okay, we're going to trade Shohei Ohtani. We're going to trade the best player in the game. Well, what are they asking for? And if you're the Angels, is it better just to take maybe 50 cents on the dollar just to get something for him rather than just let him walk and the only thing you get is like a compensatory pick?
Yes, but they're dumb, so they're going to screw it up and they're going to end up keeping Shohei, and all these conversations are going to be a waste of time.
I tend to kind of agree, right? Like, I could see Artie Moreno being like, I'm not going to be the guy that's going to trade Ohtani. Who's going to show up in the second half and fill out our stadium? I'm a businessman. I can't do that. So are we sure that even if the Angels are out of it, they're definitely trading Ohtani?
No, I'm not sure they're definitely trading him, but they'd be foolish not to find out what the market is for him. And I mean, you saw this happen a few years ago. It's a smaller level, and it's a lesser, more specific type of player. But I mean, the Yankees traded Aroldis Chapman and got a really nice prospect out of it, and then went back in free agency and got Aroldis Chapman back.
Yeah, they got Gleyber Torres in that deal and then re-signed Chapman in the offseason.
So the Angels could have a conversation with Shohei Ohtani and be like, look, we're going to reload this farm system. We're going to be really good. And then in the offseason, when it gets here, we're coming right back to the table with all the money that you need, and we're going to keep your locker right where it is. You know everything about this city. You know everything about our organization. We're going to show up with the money, but we can't win anything right now with you this year. You get a chance to go win something, and then when you come back to us next year, we're going to be even more equipped to go out there and really kick some ass because we went and got a bunch of prospects for you for half a season.
That should be their strategy. That absolutely should be their strategy. And I get it. They're going to ask for the moon, and they should be asking for a lot, but they should take whatever they can get, just in case, honestly, because losing Shohei for nothing would be the worst-case scenario for them, and it would set their already set franchise back even more back.
I also wonder, too, if Ohtani has a clear to the Angels preference in this. Like, is his preference just clearly, let me finish the season with you guys, and then we can have all these conversations in the offseason? Or is there a preference that Ohtani has made clear to the Angels, like, hey, I believe we're still in it if we're at this level, and if we're not at this level, then let's have a conversation? Because, like, Ohtani, to an extent, has a say in this as well, because he could simply say, well, if you trade me, I'm never coming back.
Well, if I'm Ohtani, I go to the Angels and say, like, are you prepared to offer me this? And if the answer is no, trade me because I'm leaving, right? Like, that's what I would do if I was him. I'd get clarity so I know what the situation is.
Yeah, the Angels can't do that. They can't listen to Ohtani. You're going to listen to a player who says he wants to stay with you? How often have we seen that in the history of sport, where a guy in a free agency deal talks about wanting to stick around, either says it behind closed doors, or he says it publicly, or he says it everywhere, and then ultimately he decides to leave? Like, you can't run that risk. Oh, he said he'll stay, so we'll keep him, and then boom, well, the Dodgers come in or the Mets come in, and that's where Shohei decides he wants to go, and then he's gone, and you lose him for nothing.
Yeah, but if you have a conversation with him and you get the sense that he's gone no matter what, then you say screw him and you trade him and you move on.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't get the sense that he's 100% set on coming back, even if it's like 90-10, then you got to trade him. You have to trade him.
Even if he's like, I'd prefer not to be traded. Tough. We're going to lose you for nothing.
Yeah, you don't have a no-trade clause, man. Get rid of him.
So
trade him to the Astros.
But I'm not convinced.
Jake Myers.
Yeah, I'm not convinced Artie Moreno, the owner there, is going to want to trade him. He has already said publicly they have no intention to do it, but we know how this goes. Things change, but he's not the greatest of owners. And he's the guy that cares about his bottom line a lot. You trade Ohtani, and Mike Trout's out till mid-August. Who's showing up to these games, right? And business matters. When Ohtani pitches, people show up in Anaheim to watch him. So that is a factor in all this as well.
This is Jake Asman here. Just want to say thank you for watching the most recent video here on my channel. If you're in Houston, if you're a Houston sports fan, and you want more daily Wheelhouse content, listen to the radio show live weekdays from 3 to 7 on 97.5 FM and 92.5 FM. And check out the Wheelhouse podcast. We post all 4 hours wherever you get your podcasts.